Welcome back to another episode of the Jet Take. I'm your host, Ben Blessington. Joining me now, as always, is Mr. Money, Kyle Fahey. Kyle, again, no soundbite for you.
Yeah.
And we're on Zoom again, and no callers. This is really...
It's fantastic.
No, we got to get back to our normal 8 o'clock time slot with callers and whatnot. We apologize.
I'm not apologizing.
We're only 40 minutes past.
Listen, if the callers were better, I would make more of an effort.
Oh, yeah, it's the caller's fault. All right.
It is. It's always the caller's fault. It's like a bad coach.
All right. Anyways, well, I will say an argument to stick on Zoom is now the Jets are 2-0 while we've been on Zoom. So
Ooh.
Just saying.
Yeah, take that free conference call.
I think, honestly, they've been a losing team ever since we've been on there. But, yeah, back on Zoom. Obviously, the Jets coming off a big win against the Indianapolis Colts, 2 in a row. That was huge. We talked about the importance of just getting 2 games in a row, and especially a team like Indianapolis, a very winnable game. Although Andrew Luck has been the best quarterback they've faced so far, and will probably be the 3rd or 4th best quarterback they face all season. I know they faced Rodgers and Brady, but outside of that, and maybe Cousins this week, I'd take Luck over him. So they faced a good quarterback. They did a good job. The defense, specifically in the first half, did a tremendous job. Second half had a little bit of some woes. And then Sam Darnold looked really good again. And those rookie mistakes are fewer and far between. And he's also, every week you just see more and more progress. But the downside of it, the Jets have been bitten by the injury bug as of late. In addition to Tremaine Johnson and Buster Screen being injured, now Quincy Enunwa and Marcus May are out and will be out for the next few weeks. We'll see about Johnson and Screen. As always, before we hop into talking about Indianapolis and previewing Minnesota, as always, you can follow us at the Jet Take on Twitter. That's the best place to keep up with our podcast. You can also listen to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. And, of course, you can go to turnofthejets.com for the best Jets content out there. And in just a few moments, we'll be joined by a member of TOJ. But first, I'll kick the mic over to Kyle Fahey. Really quickly, Kyle, just kind of your brief overall thoughts on the game.
It looked rigged, honestly. I mean, it looked like Vegas had some pull in that game with some of the passes that the Colts were dropping. Really bad team. I think it's exactly what we talked about in the podcast. An exception to Andrew Luck, that team's pitiful. And yet we let them come pretty close in the end of it. So it was a good win. It was good to get back-to-back. Sammy put up a nice performance, one of the better quarterbacks from last week. Quincy was non-existent, basically.
I mean, he got hurt in the first quarter, so.
Yeah, but
he caught a bubble screen for a first down and then got hurt and fumbled.
Yeah. I forgot about the fumble. Is that his second fumble 2 weeks in a row?
No. Robbie fumbled last week, I'm pretty sure.
I know Quincy's fumbled at some point this year. I know that for a fact. But anyway, it was a game we won, and good teams find their way to win. I'm not going to say it was a great game. I think the coaches did a good job again this week, specifically the defense, at least in the first half. They looked prepared. They looked ready. The defensive line, though I don't think we got any official sacks. Did we end up with any sacks? We might have got like a half sack or something. But, or I guess it would be a full sack. But the defensive line was definitely making a disturbance for most of the game, specifically Leonard Williams. I know we've been seeing a lot of highlights from him this week. Morris Claiborne stepped up into the number 1 corner role back-to-back weeks, looking pretty solid. The pick 6 to start off the game was wonderful. Jamal Adams has to work on his hands. I mean, that's his pick 6 if he doesn't, not catch that. But it was a good game.
What play are you talking about with Jamal? The second play of the game?
Yeah. He's got to catch that.
But he was definitely going for the quarterback on that and just kind of tipped the ball up. The player I would say who most definitely needed to catch their pick 6 was Perry Nickerson on, I believe was it the next drive? Yeah, I think it was the first play of the next drive. He threw it right to Perry Nickerson and he dropped it. But again, a rookie, and he's been getting extended playing time with Screen out. Speaking of Screen being out, that's probably the biggest cloud over Florham Park right now is the injuries. Because obviously we feel really good about 2 games in a row. I mean, albeit they were against the Broncos and the Colts. Not the cream of the crop of the NFL, but certainly not 2 teams you're going to walk over. One has a, top Pro Bowl quarterback and the other has, a few pieces, such as Von Miller, who's probably one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, and the Jets did a good job neutralizing him. So there's positives in the last 2 weeks, and obviously the ground game 2 weeks ago and Sam Darnold was last week. But it's hard to bask in that, knowing that, Enunwa, who's probably I mean, outside of Darnold, the most important player on this offense, or at least the most utilized player on this offense, especially at the beginning of the season. He's clearly Darnold's favorite receiver. He's dynamic. He's very unique, and he's kind of one of the most exciting players to watch in the NFL in the sense that I forget what the phrase was. I don't know if you can help me, but he's a linebacker who's playing tight end, or no, who plays like a tight end, runs like a running back, and is playing receiver. Whatever. I think it was Bob Grease or whoever who was on the Week 1 Monday Night Football color, commentating. Obviously, it wasn't the greatest duo, but that quote about Anun is so true. I mean, he's such a unique NFL player. They're not going to have him. Marcus May, who obviously forms that very solid. Now I guess they're in their second year's safety duo for the Jets, and you could definitely see, as he's come back, the defense has gone up, specifically in the back end of the secondary. It's allowed Jamal Adams to play more towards the box, and in the beginning of the season, we saw Doug Middleton getting burned quite a few times. You didn't see that as much with Marcus May, so he certainly makes a huge impact on this defense, whether or not it's quiet. And then when you couple that with missing Johnson and Screen, we don't know when they're going to be back, if they'll be back this week. This secondary is really beat up heading into a game against Kirk Cousins. I mean, you're looking at Morris Claiborne starting at the 1, and he's been absolutely fantastic this year. But opposite him, I mean, you have Darryl Roberts, who's a mediocre at best outside corner, and then Perry Nickerson, a rookie in the slot. It's definitely concerning. Kyle, how concerned are you and worried about these injuries heading into not only this week's game, but moving forward?
I think even at full health with the Jets, this was going to be a tough matchup. If we're talking corner to wide receiver, the Vikings have one of the best wide receiving cores in the NFL with Diggs and Thielen, two guys who don't get a lot of credit. I think they're starting to get more and more as the years go on for them, but I can make a very strong case that they are the best wide receiver duo in the entire NFL right now, and their production would definitely help, stat-wise, my case with Case Keenum last year, and I think Thielen and Diggs, I think they're already combined for 1,000 yards this year so far. I know Thielen's up there, but they're productive, good receivers who the Jets obviously need Tremaine Johnson and Morris Claiborne and Buster Screen for. And I know this is where we're saying it. We need Buster Screen in this game because, I'm not trusting Perry Nickerson and Darryl Roberts right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's certainly one of those things where Buster Screen certainly has drawn the ire of many Jets fans, but he does serve a purpose in this Todd Bowles defense. And when he's in the slot, playing to his strengths, he's actually not, he's not a terrible player. He's going to get his penalties and whatnot. He's going to get burned. I'm not saying that he's a great player, but certainly I'd feel more comfortable having him out there than a guy like Perry Nickerson, who I like as a prospect, but certainly entering, it's going to be his third or fourth week of actually playing. It's somewhat unnerving. All right, well, we'll continue this conversation, but why don't we go ahead and bring on another member of TOJ, and I always mess up how to pronounce his last name. We've had him on the show plenty of times. He has his own podcast, certainly well known in the Jets Twitter universe.
What's the name of his podcast?
What's your point?
Okay, just making sure you knew.
Yeah, I was saying to how to pronounce his last name. I don't want to mess it up. We're gonna bring on Paulie. Paulie, I won't even mess it up on recording. I'll just let you say your last name and just hopefully I can remember it.
Bruz?
Is it Bruze? Bruzy?
Nobody says it right, but it's Bruzes, but that's why I go by Paulie Bruz because it's easier for everybody because it's been mispronounced so many times over the years. So I roll with it now, and however people say it, I let it be said.
All right, I'm going to go. I think I can remember Bruzes.
Yeah, there you go.
I like that. Well, Paulie, as we're talking about this Indianapolis game, I kind of wanted your overall thoughts on the game and the momentum that the Jets have now had, improving to 2-0 the last 2 weeks.
It's been nice. One of the things that I've made sure I've done over the last 2 weeks is actually give a shout out to the coaching staff and Todd Bowles. Not only were they down a coach for 2 games with Casey Rogers out, but it was interesting to see the Jets be aggressive. I mean, that drive before the half where they went down and got 3 points. I mean, they looked like they knew what they were doing as a team. They had timeouts still in the holster to use. And they went down and got 3 points. It was just a well-organized drive before half. And that's a step I've been looking for a Todd Bowles coach team to make over the last few years. They had 8 straight scoring drives, and would I have liked more of them to have been touchdowns? Absolutely. But anytime you're putting points on the board, it is a good thing. I like I said, I don't like field goals. I like touchdowns. But, hey, the points add up. Myers had a great game, 7 field goals, franchise record. But again, I bring it back to the coaching. 2 straight weeks, we finally got back-to-back wins, and it was just good to see the team well coached. Some of the penalties still are aggravating. There was a couple positive plays that were taken back by a couple penalties on offense. But the defense as a whole, and I've been trying to stress this over the last few weeks to people. I know that people are so focused on yardage and everything, but in today's NFL, it's where you are in scoring defense now. You're going to give up yards. You're going to give up a ton of yards in this league the way it's set up for the offenses. But before last week's game, I haven't checked the updated stats, but the Jets were 8th in the league in scoring defense. And anytime you can be in the top 10 in that's kind of where I care about now in the way that the game is played in this era.
Yeah, undoubtedly. And I think the number one thing to remember, you kind of touched on it with Bowles, is, I mean, it seems like every time the Jets get one of those momentum shifting, big time wins for the Jets, they always follow it up with just falling flat in an absolute dud. They didn't do this in this game, and I think that was the most impressive part of it. And you talked about the coaching staff. I mean, they've certainly drawn my criticism. I was even criticizing them last week. Even when they're coming off a win, I was saying, I still don't think this is the coaching staff that gets it done for the Jets. And I still have my questions. 2 wins is not going to change my answer on that.
No, absolutely not.
But yeah, it was certainly a step in the right direction. I mean, he's a young coach. I mean, in the sense that he's still, what is he, a 4th year, 5th year at this point. The leash is certainly shorter on Bowles, and I don't have much tolerance anymore. And part of me, I would still probably say fire him at the end of the year. However, if he keeps putting together wins like that, it's going to be hard to say that. And certainly, I mean, the Jets sitting at 3-3, if they can scoop up, a few of these wins before their bye, just looking at their schedule, they have this game against the Vikings, which is probably the hardest game definitely is the hardest game before their bye. They have the Bears, who are a very tough defense, and then they have 2 AFC East matchups, and then their bye. If they can scoop up some of those wins, the Jets are looking at a realistic shot at trying to make a playoff run. And look, I was a guy who said this isn't a year about playoffs. 2019 is the year. I'm going to really judge it off that. But look, Bowles has done his part these past 2 weeks, and you definitely touched on it there. And the thing that I'm kind of concerned about is, while I'm happy that Coach Rodgers is doing better and that he's back with the team, I hope Todd Bowles sticks with calling the plays on defense, because he's definitely done a great job these past 2 weeks, being really creative and mixing it up. Now, Paulie, we already talked about the injuries, and we've kind of covered that. But looking at a player that might need to step up in the absence of one of these big injuries, we're talking about Quincy Enunwa going down. A guy like Chris Herndon, who was actually PFF's top-graded tight end this week. Talk about his impact on that. How much he's going to have to step up to the occasion this weekend and moving forward with Enunwa out.
Well, I mean, it's just nice to see him out there. I mean, we had high hopes for him all preseason, and then he missed, basically the entire preseason, and we were like, oh boy, is he going to end up on IR? What's going to happen? And then he slowly, progressively moved into the offense. He had that nice catch against Jacksonville that got taken away by a penalty. He had a nice catch on Sunday, and then he had the touchdown catch. It was about a 35-yard touchdown that he was wide open. I mean, he moves like a wide receiver, but he's got a big body. He's good. He's a little raw in the blocking. He's got to get better at that. But Herndon, he could be an asset for this offense. We saw it on Sunday, and he's going to have to step up. And a guy who I've been hoping for is a guy like Pryor. I mean, he started out slow, but when he's had snaps taken away from him, but when he's been out there, he's made the most of it. I mean, he's got 2 touchdowns now this year, and he's doing things with the opportunities he's given, and he's banged up a little bit too. Robbie missed practice today, so not a game against a tough Vikings defense where you want to be down, multiple wide receivers. So, hopefully they get a little healthy and can figure this out for Sunday, because I do think the Vikings, the duo of Thielen and Diggs is gonna provide what they need in the Vikings. And I don't know if the Jets are gonna have the horses to run with them and have a shootout like they did, I guess, with the Colts last week.
Yeah, this is certainly the Jets' toughest matchup they've faced all year, and it could be, honestly, on paper and the way things are lining up with injuries, the toughest game that they have all season, even ahead of the New England Patriots, who I think will, most likely represent the AFC again in the Super Bowl, although it's not a foregone conclusion. I think the Patriots are probably a better team, but I'm saying, going into a game against the Vikings, who have already won, I think that they're 2-0 the last 2 weeks or something like that. Their strengths are kind of where the Jets' weaknesses are right now. The Jets are having injury problems and whatnot. The thing that helps is the Jets are at home and they're coming off some momentum. And yeah, it's certainly a big game. And you look at it, even the prospect of improving to winning 3 games in a row with the young team is certainly tantalizing. Now, Paulie, I want to talk about another player, friend of the podcast, is Darren Lee. And I don't mean to say anything, Paulie. Since he's appeared on our podcast, he's been an absolute beast and looks like he's on his way to a Pro Bowl season if he continues the pace that he's at. Obviously, a huge interception in the fourth quarter against Indianapolis really kind of won that game for the Jets and ended Indianapolis's drive there. Kind of your thoughts on Darren Lee's season so far, and what do you think's really clicked for him?
Oh man, Lee's been having a great season. It just further supports my stance on players. A lot of times people are so quick to give up on a player, and I have the year 3 rule. I know you guys see me talk about it a lot. That goes with any player, not just the Jet. But I fully believe that you can't judge a player until 3 full years in the NFL. And you're seeing year 3 the way Darren Lee is playing right now. He's playing well against the run. He's making tackles for loss in the backfield. He's creating turnovers. He's dropping back in coverage. He's doing well in coverage. He's getting the interception. So, everything that we expected that a player like Darren Lee, when he was drafted, and we were like, Bulls is going to use him like his Deion Buchanan, and this is how they're going to use him. And then we didn't see that. Of course, people are going to be critical because we had high expectations, and maybe we did that to ourselves. But year 3 of Darren Lee, man, I couldn't be more thrilled. As always, being a Michigan fan, I'm not biased when it comes to praising a player from that university where Darren Lee went. And I'm glad that he is playing this way, because you want to know what? Anytime you have a player on the team that struggles, if that player finally figures it out and it benefits your team, that's good for the team. And Darren Lee has done just that. And I couldn't be more thrilled because, it's added an extra element. And I got to point out, too, Avery Williamson has been fantastic. And them two together has been a real breath of fresh air in the middle for the Jets.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the linebacking core has really helped in a way, and I think that's the difference this year. It's not a lack of talent from last year, because Demario Davis obviously had a great year, and Darren Lee is Darren Lee as a talented individual. It's just how they're being used, and you said how, like with Deion Buchanan back in Arizona, or very similar to Lee as a player athletically and size and, all the, boxes he basically checks there. And we see Williamson calling the plays, and we see Lee executing them. Really good replay. I think I saw it from Joe Bluewood on Twitter, where Lee, he immediately got in on the run play. He shut a block, and he got the guy for 1 yard loss. I think it was Marlon Mack. And it's just something that we didn't really see from Lee. Last year, we would see him maybe be the first guy there, but it was after he already picked up 2 yards because he didn't recognize what was going on. I just feel like mentally the game has slowed down for Lee a lot. Because it's not like, he's gotten faster, he's gotten stronger. Yeah, maybe, but he's just gotten smarter as a student.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
That's the biggest part, I would say, as a linebacker, because all these guys in the NFL are here for a reason. They have the size, they have the speed, they have the athletic ability. It's all a matter of the mental game, especially at the linebacker position, because these quarterbacks will fake you out, and the running backs will juke you out. I mean, they're talented. So really good for Darren Lee and Avery Williamson. Strong duo this year. I think Lee is – I think statistically he's the best linebacker in the league right now. I'm not saying he's even top 10 as if we're talking real best linebackers in the NFL, but statistically he's got to be up there. I know PFF wise, I think he's ranked number 2 or number 3 right now. I imagine his stats are backing that up. I know there's something else. Oh, I had a question because we were talking. I know it's a little off topic, but I didn't get a chance to ask it. Thielen and Diggs obviously going to present a problem. When was the last time the Jets really got beat by wide receivers? We lost the game because wide receivers torched us.
So I'm trying to remember.
I mean,
okay,
maybe the Jags game with that drag route.
Yeah, because the crossing routes all day killed us. See,
3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was trying to think of multiple receivers, but I mean, there's a chance that Diggs and Thielen are both going to go over 100 yards on Sunday, and it's a real possibility, but. The Jets don't have all their horses in the secondary. So, I mean, you got May down, and we saw when Middleton did play decent when he filled in the beginning of the year, but there were breakdowns at the back end. So that is going to happen. You have to expect that to happen. With Screen out, with True out, that's, we're down in the secondary now. I'm hoping that Rashad Robinson actually gets more playing time this week. I would assume that maybe he's going to be up and ready to go. I don't remember if I don't remember seeing him out there, so I'm not sure if he had limited snaps, maybe some on specials. But I don't remember seeing him much out there in coverage. Darryl Roberts is solid, but you can't expect him to do more than you typically would. I'll tell you what, healthy Morris Claiborne though has been amazing this year. It's very good to see. But the Jets don't have all their weapons in the secondary, so it is going to be a long day. So people got to relax. I mean, Thielen right now is ridiculous, and Diggs is not far behind. So it's very possible that both of these guys might go over 100 yards on Sunday, and it's just the reality of the beast right now that the Jets are hurt, and these guys are playing at an elite level right now.
I think the last time we really asked Darryl Roberts to take a huge chunk of the snaps was that Steelers game a couple years ago where Martavis Bryant and Marcus Wheaton just ran by us.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, he's had times since then, but yeah. I mean, 2016 was that. I remember that was the first time we I remember I kept seeing on the timeline on Twitter who's this number.
Who's 27?
Yeah, he's getting burned. But I mean, he's played since then. He's gotten better. I'm on the same boat as Paulie. I would give him like a C grade. If this is Madden, he's a 75 overall corner. He's fine, but he's not a guy you want out there continuously. But I think he provides good depth, and he's a guy who's been in Bowles' system for now 3 years.
And he does seem to find the football every now and then too.
Yeah, no, for sure. And look, as you mentioned, I mean, Rashard Robinson could come back, and he was a guy that gained some momentum over the summer. So I'm hoping that he can start to capitalize more on that. Now, Paulie, before we let you go, a few things to talk about. And we had just talked about Darren Lee when you mentioned Avery Williamson, and not to pump this team up too much, but sitting at 3-3, they have some pieces and some traits that past Jets teams didn't really have. I mean, most notably a young franchise quarterback. But among other things, I mean, that linebacking core is huge because it seems like for decades now the Jets have just had some slow, mediocre guys in the middle. That's not to crap on David Harris or anything, but normally the guy's playing opposite him or
you know
the
what?
opposite.
Here's the thing. I love David Harris, again, Michigan man, but it's just nice to see an athletic, fast defense. You know what I mean? Like you could just see the difference in this Jets defense that they're everywhere. They're athletic, they're fast, they create turnovers, they're young, and the energy that they bring is something that you want to see from a defense. You watch from afar and you see some other teams over the years, and you're like, man, I wish the Jets were like this. So they got rid of some of the aging players, which you have to do. And it's one of my favorite things about football is defense. Obviously, that's changing, like I mentioned earlier, with the way the game's played. The defenses can't do much nowadays. So, you've got to be athletic and you've got to be fast and you've got to try to create what you can because you're at a disadvantage with the rules and things like that. So, and Jamal Adams is a catalyst. I mean, I go back to the Jaguars game. I mean, he forced a 3-and-out by himself. He created 3 turnovers in this game last week. He tipped 2 passes that were picked. He forced a fumble. I mean, this guy. I mean, and people want to get on him nonstop for tweeting too much and talking too much. But man, I don't understand why I don't know why his play on the field is getting ignored. He's improved in his coverage. I don't know what more people want from him. I couldn't be more thrilled and happy to have Jamal Adams as the face of this franchise. And it's perfect because you've got the young guy in Sam Darnold who's a little quiet, which is perfect because you've got the vocal leader in the face of the defense in Jamal. So I think it's a perfect way to offset each other. But, man, I feel like just for once watching a fast athletic defense for this franchise is just nice.
Yeah, no, undoubtedly. I mean, it's one of those things where I don't think we've ever seen a team, kind of as I was talking about, a team that had that athleticism and whatnot. And certainly there are a few holes in this team, but it's one of those things where heading into this next offseason, look, I'm excited about 2018 and the prospects that it holds. But 2019, I mean, honestly has me salivating as a time, for the first time in a long time where I say the Jets can actually contend. And I don't just mean to make the playoffs. I mean that I think in 2019, if Maccagnan and company play their cards right and Bowles or whoever the head coach is plays their cards right, I honestly think the Jets can be a contender.
This is what I want to say. The Jets are projected to have $96 million in cap space. Okay, I don't know if Bowles is going to be here or not. I said at the beginning of the year, if they won more than 5 games, which they won last year, he would probably be back with a rookie quarterback. If the wheels fall off, he probably won't be. I still think that they should go in another direction regardless how this season plays out. But if they decide to keep Bowles, if they win 7, 8 games, I get it. But this is going to be a real big offseason for Mike Maccagnan because he's missed on a lot of his later round and mid-round picks. He's got to start hitting on them now because you got the quarterback. So Maccagnan is going to be here, I believe, a little bit longer than Bowles. He obviously has leeway because he got the quarterback last year, but he needs free agency, and what he does in free agency is going to be great. But he needs to start building this roster, this offensive line, and getting more playmakers on the offense for Sam Darnold because it's all going to come down to what they put around this kid because we see what he can do with decent talent. Let's see what he could do when we get him even better talent.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and as a kind of what I was saying was just like there are not as many holes that the Jets need to fill in. It's one of those things where once you get that franchise quarterback, things start to seem a little easy. I'm not saying they don't have holes. I mean, obviously, I think replacing Long and Carpenter is going to be a big part, and potentially Beachum as well. That whole entire left side, really. I think Beachum, if he stays, it's okay, but they definitely need to replace Long and Carpenter and draft a left tackle, friend of the podcast, Kelvin Beachum, behind either sitting behind Beachum or cut Beachum and sign a left tackle, whatever it is. That's got to get remodeled. Add another playmaker or two, and then on defense, get a premier edge rusher, maybe another corner, whatever. But the team is not too far off. It's good coaching and a few players away from really being a competitive team. And just kind of on that note. Last question. I mean, how far do you see this team going this year? I know it's early, but we're getting to a point where we're 2 weeks out of halfway through the season. We've seen the team and kind of their tendencies. Paulie, do you have kind of any predictions now that we've seen the team for a few weeks on where they might end up?
You know what? Not to let you guys down, but I don't. The thing is at the beginning of the year when I was on with you guys and during training camp, I said this season's all about Sam Darnold's development. So I didn't really care about wins and losses. Is it nice to watch a game every week and not be rooting for a tank? Absolutely. It's nice to watch them go out there and compete. It's nice to watch Darnold go out there and complete 79% of his passes. But I don't know where this team is going to be because we know the NFL's week to week and we know injuries happen. Would I like this team to make a playoff push and steal a wild card spot? Absolutely, because that means more Jets football, and it means that not only is this team getting playoff experience, so will Sam Darnold, even if it is one game. But this team is going to go where Sam takes them. He's improving on the turnovers. Yes, he had the interception, but he's going to throw picks, so people can't overreact to that. If you're not paying attention to the other great things he's doing, then you're missing out. But like I said, I don't have any predictions. Would I like to see them make a run? Absolutely. But I mean, we could see a stretch here where they've got to play the Vikings and the Bears, and they lose both games, and we're back to saying, oh well, we won 2 games in a row. Now we're on a 2-game losing streak. So
the tank's back on.
Yeah,
I certainly agree with you. I don't want to gas them up too much after two wins in a row. But it's certainly exciting to look at the team.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to see players develop, like Darren Lee, for instance. It's nice to see guys make plays and step up. And it's nice to watch the progression of Darnold because every week, he makes a throw that we're like, wow, I haven't seen a throw from a Jets quarterback ever make that throw. So, that there was I remember it was a 3rd and long, and he completed a pass to Curse last week, and I was like, for first down, I think it was 3rd and 15, and it went for first down, and I was like, man, I haven't seen a Jets quarterback make that throw since Favre, and I don't really even count Favre that much because it was a 1-year thing. But, I just, like I said, it's just great to see that we finally have our franchise quarterback and that we're finally maybe taking that turn.
Yeah, no doubt. Paulie, it was Bruz. Thank you, Paulie Bruz. Thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you on. Really quickly, just shout out your pod where our listeners can shoot you a follow.
Yeah, of course. You can find us on the Play Like a Jet stream. Our podcast is called What's Your Point? Myself and Delvin Osario. We debate the weekly Jets topics. We kind of moved to a new night. We're releasing on Sunday nights now. Kind of after the game. It's not a post game wrap up, but we're debating some topics for the week, and we cover, a few topics from the games. But you can follow the podcast at TOJ_WYP. Like I said, you can subscribe on iTunes and all that stuff on the Play Like a Jet feed. And you can follow me at PAULIE_BRUZ at Paulie_Bruz.
All right, Paulie. Thank you so much, man.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, again, that was Paulie Bruz. Great guy to have on the show. Obviously brings the heat every time we have him on. Now, Kyle, we have a few minutes here just to wrap up. And certainly I know we got into talk about the Jets being a contender and going to the playoffs. And look, I'm not trying to be, over I don't want to be a sensationalist here and talking about, the Jets are making a Super Bowl run this year or whatnot. I'm just saying it's exciting to watch the players continue to, as Paulie said, continue to grow and continue to develop. And it's honestly an exciting time to be a Jets fan. And we haven't really been able to say that since probably the 2009-2010 AFC Championship days. All right, Kyle, really quickly, this Jets Vikings game, talking about what they need to do. Kyle, some of your keys to the game, your thoughts on the matchup.
Well, it's going to be difficult for the Jets. I think we should just clarify that. I'm being real. I don't expect us to get a win this week because, one, Minnesota is a better team when both teams are at their best. I understand the Jets are at home. I understand the Jets have a lot going for them right now. But at the same time, I don't expect our best corners to play. I don't expect the offense to get a lot done without Quincy. Marcus May being gone in the back end is a huge problem. I think Sheldon Richardson, who has been a force this year for Minnesota, might have his way with James Carpenter and, possibly even Kelvin Beachum, depending on where he lines up. This defense is not to be messed with. I think Sam Darnold might make a couple rookie mistakes, but if you want me to give you some previews, Morris Claiborne versus, I'm going to guess, Stephon Diggs for most of the game. Thielen's probably going to be on the inside, so whoever's going to be playing the nickel slot, I'm going to guess Nickerson is going to step into that role. Maybe Darryl Roberts from time to time. I think those guys will probably feast on the defense. I think the linebackers will have a nice game. Dalvin Cook, I believe, is done for a couple weeks, so Jerick McKinnon's going to get – no, Jerick McKinnon's on the 49ers. Who's their backup now? They signed him this offseason. Ben, help me.
Latavius Murray? I don't know.
Yes, that's exactly who it is. Latavius Murray, very similar to Jerick McKinnon. But Latavius Murray will probably get the bulk of the handoffs. Kirk Cousins, I think, is the biggest storyline here. Probably going to hear about it 100 times during the talk of the game. I don't expect him to have a phenomenal day. I think the wide receivers are going to do most of the work. And I know that sounds redundant, but when I say that, I mean Diggs will catch a 5-yard out and probably take it to the house. So not expecting a lot from the Jets, but there's always hope.
Yeah, and all good points that you just mentioned, Kyle. I think the biggest thing to watch out for is Kirk Cousins is among the leaders in turnovers at 9 total, but primarily for fumbles. He has 6 fumbles. The Jets are second in the league in takeaways. So, honestly, if the Jets can force some of these turnovers, and then on the flip side of that, the Jets are one of the lowest red zone offenses. So, if they can capitalize on the turnovers and then increase the red zone efficiency and capitalizing off of those turnovers, I think you're looking at an outcome that could be fairly surprising. Now, I agree with you, Kyle. I do not think they'll win this game. As I mentioned, I think this is the hardest game that they have on their schedule and probably will have as far as matchup-wise their entire year. So I do not expect them to win. But if they can at least prove something that they didn't prove a few weeks ago against Jacksonville in a game that they weren't favored in, is that they at least belong in the same field as Minnesota, that it's at least competitive, that Sam Darnold continues to make strides and the defense continues to make strides, I'll be content with it. As Paulie and I were kind of talking about, this season was all about development. 2019 was when we were really starting to think about playoffs and more. I mean, obviously, I agree. I want a wild card run and whatnot. But this is all about development. But as I said, if the Jets can, force Kirk Cousins into some of these turnovers that he's had early on in his tenure in Minnesota, and the Jets can increase what they did poorly on last week, which is their red zone offense and capitalizing off these turnovers and getting touchdowns, then I think you could see a fairly surprising outcome. A few topics before we wrap up, though, Kyle. The hate for Kirk Cousins, to me, is a little bit surprising. I don't necessarily agree with that. I wanted to get your thoughts. There are people talking about how we're going to boo him. Honestly, I think Kirk Cousins deserves a standing ovation because he scoffed. Because he scoffed at the Jets' offer, that spurred them to trade up and go get Sam Darnold, who's the future of this franchise. I mean, invigorated this fan base with a sense of youth and excitement and hope that they really haven't had in a long time. Kyle, kind of your thoughts on Kirk Cousins? Because me personally, I know we were both on the train of getting Kirk Cousins, and my logic was always this. Look, I recognize drafting a quarterback is better for the Jets, and I think if I were to know that a quarterback was going to fall to 6, I would say draft a quarterback. But the problem was I didn't think that a good quarterback was going to fall to 6. I actually would have been wrong because Josh Rosen fell to 6 and below. And I didn't think that the Jets were going to trade up and could trade up without giving up a first, but they did those things. And so obviously I was on board with drafting a quarterback. But, look, I think Cousins is a good quarterback, and I think Minnesota's a much better situation for him. But I'm certainly not going to hold any grudge over him for spurning the Jets or using the Jets as leverage, because he honestly might have let the Jets walk themselves right into one of the best decisions they've made as a franchise, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on the hate for Kirk Cousins?
I mean, I think it's fair.
Really?
Kirk wanted to get paid, obviously, and he wanted to be on a relevant team. They said, Super Bowl chances. I don't see it in Minnesota. There is a very strong team out in LA right now, and I think there's always the Patriots who would definitely beat the Minnesota Vikings in a Super Bowl. So you can't tell me he went there for a Super Bowl shot, because I can tell you, Case Keenum.
I wouldn't say that.
Oh, I think they have 0.
Nick Foles beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl last year. I wouldn't just throw the Vikings.
I think
out
Doug Peterson beat Bill Belichick last year.
Okay, but the Vikings have a solid coach in Mike Zimmer, and they have a pretty great defense, and as you mentioned, probably the top wide receiver duo in the NFL right now.
Yeah, but I think Case Keenum had something special with that team last year. They're not the same Vikings team they were last year. They have gotten better on paper, but they are a significantly worse team. I think you can agree with that.
What's the record again? What is it? 4-2? What are they 4-2?
I believe.
Are they 5-1? Look,
I think they're 4-2 because they lost to the Bills. I mean, they got slaughtered by the Bills.
Yeah, the Vikings right now are sitting at 3-2-1. They tied.
Who'd they tie? The Packers. The Packers. They tied the Packers. They tied
with the Packers. They're 3-2.
That bull crap Clay Matthews call. So they lost to the Packers. The Packers outplayed them. Packers got screwed in that game. And they lost to the Bills. 2 pretty bad teams. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers closes a huge gap there with the Packers, but both pretty trash teams. This team isn't unbeatable. I just don't think it's the Jets' weak. But going back to the Cousins hate, I think fans have a right to be upset. I think the better choice for him was New York money-wise. And I think long-term, if he's talking about championships, I think New York was the better option as well. And if he's smart marketing himself, I'll tell you right now, if you're a great player in Minnesota like Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, half the nation's not going to know who you are. If you're even a above average player in a New York market, everybody's going to know who you are. Remember the love that Landon Collins got for having a decent season at safety? I mean, it's just like the mecca market of the world, but I think Kirk made a mistake.
I don't. I disagree with you fundamentally on a few issues. I think that, look, Minnesota was a better situation for him. They're more of a win-now team. I think they're not going to win. Organization was more stable. I think that look, they were coming off of an AFC championship.
Have you seen their stable when their coach was out with?
And Kyle, and you mentioned some players don't crave that spotlight. I don't think he wanted that extra New York Post, back page of the New York Daily News attention. I don't think he wanted that. That was his. I thought from the get-go that Minnesota was a better situation. If the money was close, he was going to go Minnesota, and that was pretty obvious. I do not blame him for choosing there. If I wasn't a Jets fan and I was in his shoes, I would probably also choose Minnesota. And look, he let the Jets walk right into, so far it's looking like one of the best moves in franchise history. So, and I don't want to jinx it because, God knows anything can happen in this league. But, right now, Sam Darnold looks like a very good pick for the Jets. And so, no, I don't blame Kirk Cousins at all. I have no ill will towards him, and I'm very glad with this decision. But I agree with you. I don't think the Jets are that far off the Vikings right now. But you look at them in March, pre-draft, coming off a 5-11 season, quarter. I don't know. There's a different buzz around this team now than there was last year. And there was a positive buzz around the team last year too. But it's different. There's actual tangible hope. And as I said at the beginning of the show, 2019 is a year where the Jets can actually do something. Who knows? Maybe they make a Cinderella run this year. But anyways, Kyle, before we wrap it up, let's go ahead and I just want to talk about one more topic because we talked about a lot of positives tonight. I want to just bring it to some negatives, then we'll do predictions, and then we'll get out of here. And I meant to actually talk about this with Paulie, but I will go back for it now. I mean, obviously,
two predictions.
We didn't do like the bold prediction of the game and the score prediction. I mean, we both have said the Vikings are probably going to win, but we've talked a lot positively about the Jets and what McCagnon has done and how they've come along. And look, again, I think Bowles has beat two solid middle of the pack teams. If the Jets win this game, get 3 in a row, with the injuries they're facing in this matchup, then I'll seriously start to consider my stance on Bowles. But anyways, there's been a lot of positivity. But let's talk about two players for the Jets that I don't necessarily – or two McCagnon offseason moves that I don't necessarily think have completely paid off. We'll start with Spencer Long, and then we can move on to Tremaine Johnson. Talking about Long, I mean, has probably been the Jets' worst offensive lineman this season. I mean, the snaps were crucial last week. I mean, he just kept missing them. I know he's a thumb issue or something. He has a hand injury, and so you have to think that's playing a factor. But even without that, before the injury, his blocking just hasn't been very good. I mean, he's been healthy for the most part outside of that hand, and he just hasn't really been that effective. And it makes you wonder, should the Jets have gone the pricier route of a guy like Ryan Jensen or somebody like that, or try to address in the draft or something. Actually, there's 3 that I'd like to talk about. Second one is Nathan Shepard, or the third one's Nathan Shepard, and we'll talk about him in a second. Sorry. Second one's Tremaine Johnson. Been injured the past few weeks. The Jets' biggest, money acquisition has been all right. Hasn't been amazing. Got burned a few times now. It's been hurt the past few weeks, and we don't know when he's supposed to return. And the last one's Nathan Shepard. 3rd-round pick, was already, 24? He's going to be 25 and has done little to nothing. I mean, he's starting, and he's made his impact in the sense that he's plugged holes.
Is he starting?
In the run? He's listed as the starter, and I think he gets the first. But I would say Henry Anderson plays way more snaps than he does. But he's normally the first defensive lineman out there. I don't know what their rotation is, but he's still listed as the starter. And yeah, I mean, he's done a good job plugging holes, and he's not getting pushed around. So Muhammad Wilkerson was just getting pushed around and not trying at all. Nathan Shepard's at least keeping it content, but he hasn't, but again, he's a rookie. He's coming from D2. But again, there's, he's 24. I mean, if you're going to take a guy from D2, you want it to be younger. So obviously it's going to take him some time. But by the time Nathan Shepard might get the hang of things, he might be 28. Anyways, so let's talk about these 3 moves. Kind of your thoughts on all 3 of them. We'll start with Long, move to Johnson, talk about Shepard. Kind of your feelings on how their seasons have played out and the hope that you have for them moving forward. As we talked about, a guy like Lee, a lot of Jets fans were in favor of cutting him in the offseason. And now look at him, he's playing as one of the best.
Only idiots wanted to cut a first-round pick who was going into his 3rd year.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I don't think that was a viable option, but people thought that Darren Lee was absolutely – I'll say this. People that we respect, Kyle.
Who?
We're not going to throw out names.
We're not going to name names.
People that we respect on the same platform, maybe people who have started the platform that we're on, suggested that the Jets should play Kevin Minter or Neville Hewitt over Darren Lee in the preseason. That was, but to be fair, that wasn't an absurd take the way Lee had played. Lee had shown flashes of brilliance, but had been mostly, flashes of getting burned and beaten coverage and missing tackles and whatnot. So, anyways, the only reason I brought up Lee was it does show that players can improve, like Shepard, like Johnson, like Long. And obviously Lee is now playing like one of the best linebackers, and as I said, could get himself a Pro Bowl bid. But anyways, talk about Long, Johnson, and Shepard.
I'll start with Long. Statistically, this is his worst year to date. I think he's been fine, though, at center. I think he's been second best guy interior. I think they're all pretty close when it comes to playing, but I think Brian Winters has had a couple solid games in a row now. James Carpenter probably on the way out. But Long, he's a stopgap center. We didn't give him a huge contract. It's basically what I expected from him. Until we find a guy in the draft who we really like, which is a possibility this year in the first round, he's going to be our center. Tremaine Johnson, to make it short and quick, he's been injured for the most part. And when he was on the field, he's had moments of brilliance. And then there was a couple times where he got beat straight up and the quarterback overthrew him. I can think of one for sure in the Cleveland game. So I think given time, Tremaine Johnson will definitely be worth the money. I still think he's getting used to things. He still needs to get healthy, which kind of sucks because he's been a primarily healthy guy for most of his career. It's just unfortunate that the Jets have the injury bug right now. And then with Shepard, I get the hype around him. I really do. Canadian Thanos. But it just seems like he's one of those guys that Jets fans love to hype up. We saw it with like Lorenzo Molden. And I think we're seeing it with him. I'm not saying he's going to have the same outcome as Lorenzo Molden, but people need to remember that, for one, he's a rookie. He is in the same meeting room with a guy like Leonard Williams, guys like Steve McClendon, who, one, are bona fide, very good starters in the NFL. Leo and McClendon are, when it comes to duos on the defensive line, I think, this year so far, they're definitely in the top 10. They've been performing well together, especially Steve McClendon. Shout out to Steve McClendon, guy that doesn't get a lot of love. It's hard to get reps on that team. So as a rookie, you're on the older side. You're coming from a Division II school. The talent is insanely different. Division II compared to Division I is insanely different. I mean, there's a reason teams like Bama goes and pays them $1 million to come play them for that easy win. I mean, I'm not trying to take away from Nathan in any way here, but Division II is just lesser. He's coming from lesser place than a lot of these guys, and that doesn't mean he can't do it. I'm just saying it's going to take more time for him to get adjusted. That's pretty evident so far. I know he has been getting snaps, but he hasn't been doing a lot with them. We saw, I think, 1 or 2 plays in the Detroit game. Haven't seen much from it yet. So everything progresses in time. At least we hope. I'm not worried about Nathan Shepard. I think he'll be a fine defensive end, for as long as the Jets would like to keep him around. I don't think he's going to be a earth shadower. I don't think he's going to gather all the Infinity Stones for us. I think he's going to be a third-round pick, 25-year-old defensive lineman. You tell me what your expectations are for that, and I'll probably say, yeah, that's about right. Tremaine Johnson, I think he'll end up being very good for us, and Spencer Long, just a stopgap center.
All right. Yeah, I definitely agree. Those were kind of, that and the injuries have been kind of the only shadows, I guess, over this very optimistic Jets team, and one that has a lot of hope around it, and a team that I'm very excited to watch this Sunday, and then I'm excited to watch for the rest of the season. If you're listening to this podcast, and Kyle, I know you can share this. I mean, I think the one thing that we can all say is watching the Jets is fun again. I've always enjoyed watching Jets games. I mean, why else would you do it? I mean, I guess I shouldn't say always. When they blow a fourth quarter lead, but in the sense that it's always like, oh, the Jets are on. I'm excited to watch the game and whatnot, so they can ultimately break my heart. But I will say, having Darnold and having Jamal Adams and having Darren Lee play well, I mean, having all these guys has made being a Jets fan fun again, and I'm very excited about what this holds. Even if the Jets suffer a crushing, shutout beat by 30 points loss to the Vikings, still know that the future is bright for this team in New York. All right, we're going to end it there. Sorry, I forgot. Kyle, final predictions. One bold prediction and a score prediction for the game against Minnesota.
Okay, bold prediction. 2 interceptions off Kirk Cousins. I don't think that's that bold. And 27-10. Yeah,
I'm going to say that the Jets are going to be able to force a good amount of turnover. I think the Jets are going to get in a shootout against the Vikings. That's going to be kind of my bold prediction. It's going to be one of those things where I think, Thielen is going to be dominating us, going to have, 10, 11 catches, and Diggs is going to get a few. So they're going to get a few touchdowns and whatnot. But I think the Jets are going to be able to force a few turnovers there and set Darnold up inside Minnesota territory. And I think Darnold's actually going to have one of his best games as a pro. So I think they're going to go kind of back and forth for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, just the injuries and, having a rookie quarterback versus a vet, I think that's going to hurt him. I think it'll be promising for the offense and promising for some of the big splash plays that they're going to make on defense, like an interception or forced fumble or a big sack or something. But overall, they just won't have the stamina or the firepower to keep up with the Vikings. I think they could lose, something like 37 to 28 or something like that, 37-30, something like that. But yeah, I don't think they're going to get run off the field like they were against Jacksonville. All right, well, we'll end it there. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Jet Take. Again, you can follow me at Ben W. Blessington on Twitter, at Kyle Fahey NFL to follow Kyle. You can follow the show. That's probably the best place to follow us for Jets Talk. We go back and forth with you guys on Twitter. We talk all things Jets. We live tweet during the games at the Jet Take. If you want to listen to the show, the podcast, you just search up the Jet Take anywhere you listen to podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, whatever. We're on there. And as always, you go to turnonthejets.com to find the best Jets content. Our podcast is on there among many other great Jets podcasts and Jets articles and Jets content. So just make sure to go check it out there. We also they have a shop. So if we're getting close to the holidays. If you want to go over there, Friend of the Jets.com.
Maybe if you have a friend of the family, you can send them a friend of the podcast.
All right. That was okay.
Thank you.
Anyways, I guess that's where we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Jet Take. I don't have a soundbite or anything.
Am I going to get my final words?
Second week, I guess I give you the second week, but we'll probably be back on free conference call with callers next week. I presume, right, Kyle?
We'll see how we feel.
I think I think we probably will be. If we are, again, follow us on Twitter. That's the best place. I think we will be. The number is 515-739-1285. The pin is 861-260 with the pound or hash sign. We are live Wednesdays at 8 for the most part. Sometimes there's some fluctuation. I'm in college. Kyle's a senior in high school, so there's we're not necessarily we're not always in control of our schedules. But all right, well, we'll end it there. Big game this weekend. Very excited to watch it. If the Jets win, it's going to be chaos at MetLife Stadium. And even if they lose, let's just hope they continue to show promise. 3-3, Kyle. Let's hope they improve to 4-3. That's where we'll do it. Kyle, any last words?
Ariana Grande, give me a call.
Okay. Wow. It's so cold. It's only been a few days, Kyle. Our hearts are still broken.
No, he died like a month ago.
Oh, we're not talking about Pete Davidson.
His career died like a couple years ago.
All right, you throw him in, Pete Davidson under the bus. All right.
Butthole eyes.
I guess he's a Giants fan, so who knows. All right, let's end it there. Let's hope for a Jets win this Sunday.
All right, go Jets.